Hi, my name is Christian Hernandez, and I recently graduated from New Mexico State University with a degree in wildlife science. One of the most important aspects of applying for a federal position is having a federal resume. However, a federal resume varies greatly from a typical one. As such, a resume that may work to get you a job in another field will likely be insufficient in getting you a federal position. In this video, I will be covering how to create a federal resume that will enable you to apply for federal jobs.
When creating your federal resume, you should begin by creating a header. Your header should be at the top of the front page and should include your name, address, phone number, and email. In addition, all pages on your resume should be numbered. Next, you will want to add some information pertaining to eligibility for federal jobs. This includes citizenship and veterans preference. Make sure to note if you are a United States citizen while also addressing whether or not you have veterans preference. If you do not have veterans preference, you can answer this section by putting NA. You will then want to provide job information for the job that you are applying for. This includes the announcement number, the job title, and the series and grade. This information should be provided in the job announcement on USA Jobs or whatever federal source through which the job is listed. In addition, you can provide an objective, which should be specifically tailored to the job that you are applying for. For your objective, you should use verbs related to the intended position. For example, if you are applying for a wildland firefighting position with the United States Forest Service, then your objective may look like the following. My objective is to obtain a GS3 wildland firefighter position with the United States Forest Service, working on various wildland fire crews performing fire suppression and fuels management related duties. This position would greatly improve my skill set and will allow me to further my career as a wildland fire professional. The next section of your resume should be your work experience. Your work experience will likely be a deciding factor in the hiring process and should be very thorough in order to ensure that your qualification for the position is evident. Your work experience should include the agency that you worked for, the location, the dates employed, your salary, the hours per week, your supervisor and their contact information, and permission to contact supervisor. You should always provide permission to contact supervisors, as this will add credibility to your experience. As such, ensure this section is marked Yes. When providing this information, it is important to utilize different indentations and bolding text when necessary. You do not want this information to all blend together, as this can make your resume more difficult to follow. By bolding certain aspects of the text and indenting your information, it can make your resume visually appealing. After this information is added, provide your job title. You can italicize your job title in order to make it stand out. Then you want to provide your job duties for this position. Rather than providing all of your duties in paragraph form, concise yet descriptive statements should be provided in bullet point format. Make sure to add all previous experiences that are related to the job that you are currently applying for, as this can demonstrate your qualification for the position. When you are finished adding your job duties for the position, add all previous work experiences to your resume in an identical format.
For more on what to include in your federal resume, here's Rick Tafoya, who works as an HR specialist for the USDA Farm Production and Conservation Business Center. Rick Tafoya has graciously agreed to be interviewed for this video in order to share agency insight and help students.
Even information and work experience that you've done in the past, volunteer experience that you've done in the past, even if it dips down into high school kind of activities and those sorts of things. As a college student, we know that you're not going to have a large breadth of work experience and things of that nature, but what you do have, you should try your best to incorporate into your resume. So again, we encourage the federally formatted resume. We don't limit or necessarily encourage students to limit their resume to 1 or 2 pages. If it goes into 3 or 4 pages, that's fine. If you have that extent of experience and other information that you want to include in that federally formatted resume, please do so. When it comes to documenting and typing up the content for your work experience or volunteer experience, think of the STAR approach. The situation, what was the situation under your work experience? What was the task that you were given to do during, as it relates to a project or job assignment? What was the action that you took to complete that task? And then what were the results? What were the results and outcomes of that task? So if you take that approach to every job that you have, or every volunteer experience that you have, or every project that you did in college or high school, take that approach in writing the narratives of your work experience. What that does is it takes the experience from start to finish. You're showing the employer the job that you did, your role and participation in completing that job, and then what were the positive outcomes and results of all that. That is really critical in a resume, and those are the sorts of things that our hiring managers look for in resumes, in student resumes.
In other fields, it is often stressed that when creating your resume, it should be short and sweet. The reasoning behind this is that you wouldn't want an extensively long resume because it might lose the interest of the employer. However, this logic does not hold true with federal jobs. Federal positions often require a very specific set of requirements, skills, and experience. The requirements for federal positions vary, but they are often highly specific and extensive. Therefore, if you use a short and sweet resume, it is likely that you will not convey your qualifications well enough, and you probably will not get hired.
I know many students are trained, taught throughout high school and college to develop a resume primarily for the private sector using that type of format and style, which generally translates to like 1.5 pages tops. The federally formatted resume is different. It's structured a little bit different, quite a bit differently than a private sector resume. But it's really, really important to use a federally formatted resume and include as much content as in terms of your work experience, volunteer experience, education completion to date, to the point that the students have completed. All those sorts of components and aspects of a resume need to be inserted into a federally formatted resume, because that is what our HR specialists look for initially when the application comes in. One of the things that adds to the length of a federally formatted resume is, in addition to work experience, obviously the student wants to incorporate their educational experience, things that they've completed up to that point. And then also activities that you're participating in college. So if you're part of a club or organization and you hold a position as an officer in that organization, that shows leadership, that shows participation, that demonstrates communication skills that you're working on and developing. So all those sorts of things you want to incorporate into your resume as well. But also training. If you have any training certificates, licenses, things of that nature that you've completed up to that point as a student, whether it's CPR training or other type of training experience that you've received formally or informally, it's really important to list out the type of training that you've completed as well. So that'll add to the content and information of a resume, a federal resume. But what it does is it shows the employer, the hiring manager, the whole you as an applicant, the well-roundedness as an applicant, because that's one of the really important things that they look for in a student. It's not just somebody who's necessarily doing entirely well academically, which is also important, but we're also looking for students that are engaged and involved and going through the full experience in college. So they're doing community service as well as attending college and doing well in their classes. They've taken advantage of training opportunities, things of that nature, whether it's on campus or off campus. So they're volunteering on a regular basis. Things of that nature is what is going to define you as a very well-rounded applicant, and that's really important to the hiring manager when they're reviewing applications.
When applying for these federal jobs, you must use a federal resume, which needs to be thorough enough to fully convey that you meet all the requirements, skills, and experience necessary for the position. Although federal resumes are longer than typical resumes, it needs to be mentioned that your federal resume should also be concise. What this means is that your resume should properly convey your experience in the fewest words possible, while still showing that you are qualified. Here is an example.
Say, for instance, that you are applying for a wildlife biologist position that requires experience ear tagging small mammals. To cover your experience, you may say something along the lines of the following. During an internship in 2017, I gained experience ear tagging Gunnison's prairie dogs. In addition, during the summer of 2019, I worked with kangaroo rats and was required to ear tag all trapped individuals. Although this statement properly conveys your experience, it is incredibly long-winded and could definitely be shortened. Notice how the following statement reveals the same level of experience in much fewer words. Through previous internships, I have gained extensive experience ear tagging small mammals, including prairie dogs and kangaroo rats. This statement is much more concise, but still shows that you are qualified for the position. You should use this format to complete your federal resume.
Another piece of advice that should be used when filling out your resume is the utilization of action verbs. Action verbs are verbs that elevate the level of your writing and therefore put forth a much more professional tone. Doing this can greatly increase your chances of getting hired. Here is an example.
Say that you have experience working as a manager, overlooking other workers. In that case, your resume may say something like the following. I was in charge of several workers and was responsible for assigning work tasks. Although this statement works, by using action verbs, it can greatly elevate your level of writing. Notice the following modification of the same sentence by simply changing out the verbs for action verbs. I supervised several workers and was responsible for the delegation of tasks. As you can see, by simply changing a few words in your resume to incorporate action verbs, your resume can be greatly improved. The Forest Service has provided a list of action verbs that can be used in your resume, and this list can be accessed by making a simple Google search. By searching some action verbs to help you write your federal application, a PDF document from the Forest Service will appear. By pressing this page, a long list comprised of action verbs for many different scenarios will be provided. Use this list to improve your federal resume. After the work experience section, you will now move on to the education section. In this section, provide the university or college that you attended, as well as the location, the degree, your graduation date, and your GPA. If you are currently in school, you can note in this section that your degree is in progress and include the number of completed hours as well as the anticipated graduation date. You can also include information for high schools or community colleges that you attended. When you are finished with this section, move on to relevant coursework. The relevant coursework section of your federal resume is also very important. It is here that you can note any specific classes pertaining to the job that you are applying for. For example, if you are applying for a wildlife biologist position, you will want to include all classes pertaining to wildlife in this section. This can serve the purpose of strengthening your chances of getting hired, especially if you are perceived to be highly educated in the field. Next, move on to the job-related skills section of your resume. In this section, you can list any skills that are relevant to the position that you are applying for. This section can be formatted as a bullet point list. Avoid using long paragraphs, as this can be burdensome to read and may result in certain skills being overlooked. Similar to how the work experience section was filled out, use concise yet detailed descriptions of relevant skills. For example, if you have high proficiency in using handheld GPS units in the field, and the job that you are applying for requires such a skill, definitely include it in your resume. The next part of your resume should be the clubs and affiliation section. If you are, or were, affiliated with any organization that is related to your field or could help bolster your image in the eyes of an employer, make sure to include it. This section can also be formatted as a list. With each organization, include the extent of your affiliation, whether it be a leader, a member, or otherwise. You should also include a job-related certification section in your federal resume. If you possess any relevant certifications that may benefit you in the job that you are applying for, definitely include it. Common certification examples can include defensive driving, CPR, wilderness first aid, and ATV safety. However, there are countless other certifications, and if you think it will improve your chances of being hired, include it. Finally, you'll be brought to the references section of your resume. This section is a requirement for any application. Make sure to put your references on their own page, rather than a continuation of a previous page. Your references page should be the final page of your federal resume. References serve as a source of credibility, and therefore you should only use references that have good things to say about you. In addition, only use professional references, such as previous supervisors or professors. You will want to list at least 3 professional references. Some information that should be included for each reference are names, affiliations, such as federal agencies or universities, and contact information, including email and phone number. In addition, you should make sure to reach out to each of the references that you have listed and let them know that they may be contacted. You will want to do this to ensure that the references are willing to serve as a reference and are prepared to speak on your behalf if they are contacted. At this point, your federal resume is complete. In closing, make sure to be thorough when describing your experiences in order to demonstrate your qualification for the position that you are applying for. In addition, make sure to indent, italicize, and bold text when necessary to make your resume visually appealing. If your resume is hard to follow, it may lead hiring personnel to overlook key pieces of information and therefore could impact your chances of being hired. By following these steps and using this advice, you are well on your way to creating a federal resume.
I would like to once again thank Rick Tafoya for generously donating his time to provide such useful information. A link for the full interview between myself and Mr. Tafoya will be linked in the description of this video.
This video was produced by the Southwest Natural Resource Career Track Program. This program is a collaboration among Hispanic serving institutions in the Southwest United States, with the primary objective being to diversify the USDA Forest Service and Natural Resources Conservation Service labor forces, along with other natural resource agencies. This is accomplished by providing career track opportunities for underrepresented students in natural resource fields. Thanks to the amazing work being done by the Southwest NRCT program, this video has been provided to assist you. For more information about this program, see the link in the description. Thank you for watching, and best of luck.